Donna. Hi, Adrian. Hi, Leslie. Hi, Caroline. Just waiting for people to pop on. Just give it another minute and then I will start. 1 second, I have to refresh my iPad for a second because I can't, all of a sudden my comments disappeared. So let me just restart that. There. Should be okay now. Welcome everyone. Hello, hello for everyone that's joining. So welcome everyone to our Tuesday evening with our Learning Live. This is our last installment of Embossing Folders. I am Darlene from the Papercrafters Workshop. Many of you I know or have seen or heard from you. So tonight we are going through some of my favorite tips and tricks and techniques, and hopefully you will learn a thing or two. And I have just a bunch of my favorite embossing folders. Most of them are 3D. I just love the way they turn out. If you have any questions, feel free to pop them on and I will try to keep watch. If not, I will respond to them afterwards. So some of the things I wanted to go through is some easy techniques. Some of them you may have seen or may not. So I have my glass mat, I have my die cut machine right beside me, hopefully, and I apologize if it shakes the table because these Costco tables are wobbly. That's why the my die cut machine is always on the floor so I don't shake things, but for today's purposes, it will be on the table. But some of the techniques I want to show you is easy and fun. Some you may not know, but some of the items that I'll be using is a brayer, some acetate, lots of distress inks and oxide. So as I go through, I will explain the process and what I'm doing. If I'm going too fast or if you want to know something, just pop on and I will try to respond as soon as I see it, but there is a delay on my part, so I may be answering questions a bit later than usual. But my favorite technique, if you know me, is using the acetate and doing a technique, either some of you may know as a kissing technique or a smooshing technique. So let me show you what I am going to do with this. And I do have a final product, so that way you can see things come together. Because sometimes doing it and you're like, but what else can you do with it? So I have lots of paper cut out. I'm just using some Nina paper, and the first technique that I love doing is the smooshing technique, and then putting it through the embossing folder and getting that imprint. So I'm just gonna pick some random colors. It may not look like my samples, my final products, but at least you get to see different looks. So let's pick, I am going to do peacock feather, and then I will do some wilted violet. So first thing I'm going to do is just smush, it's really hard out here, is smush some ink down. I have my little spritzer. I'm just gonna water it down a little bit. And while I water it down, I should grab some paper towels because for sure I'm going to create a big mess. So I just watered down some ink and I'm just gonna splotch it down and do some random inking. And yes, it's a fun technique, it's messy, but wait till you see my final product and you'll be like, oh, that's something different. So I have my heat gun just to speed up the process. So it might be a little bit noisy. So this technique is, I'm just doing a smooshing kissing technique with distressed inks. I'm going to layer about 2 colors, not more than that because it does take a while to dry. You will notice my paper warping just a tad because I am just using plain Nina paper because I'm not saturating it totally with water. And I'm just speeding the process, so I'm just gonna just dab it, or we will be here forever just watching this dry. Or I can always come back, but let's just blot it. So there is some ink. Let's add some purple to it. And then I'll pick a nice embossing folder to go with this. So one of my favorite ways, I'm just gonna let it drip. And the thing is, you really want that first base to dry, or you're gonna get this mucky look, this muddy look, especially with the colors I'm using. It does create some muddy look. So hello to everyone that is joining. So tonight I will be highlighting some of my favorite tips, tricks, and techniques with embossing folders. So first up is using a smooshing technique or a kissing technique for some, and running it through the embossing folder. So it's taking a little bit. So what I'm going to do is just speed up the process. And then I'm just cheating the system and just speeding it up a little bit. And let's pick an embossing folder that we could use for this. So let me move that. So depending on which machine that you have, your sandwiches may be different. I have an extended multi-purpose platform, so I know that if I'm using a 3D embossing folder, I need to go to my tab 1. And I'm just going to pick an embossing folder from my favorite stash. So the first one I'm going to use is called, let's see, Art Deco. And I believe Sherry used this last week. So in your embossing folder, you have one where the background is raised and one side where the image is raised. So depending on how you like the look, really depends on how you want your picture. So for this purpose, I am going to do it just face up, run it through machine, and I know I just need one of my cutting plates. So with a 3D embossing folder, I know it's been mentioned that one tip is to run it 3 times. So when you see 3D, run it back and forth. So this is 1. I know I'm off screen and so sorry for the shaking. That's 2. And 1 more time. That way you get all that pressure going into the embossing folder and back out. So especially when it says 3D, like that, you want to roll it back and forth 3 times. So, not sure if you can see this. Let's see if I can let it focus a little bit. But here is the first one. So it's a very pretty background, but when you jazz it up and decorate it, and here is my sample. So as I said, some of them I do have little final products just to show you what a smooshing technique looks like. So here we just took 2 inks, emboss folder, and here is one that I've decorated with some lawn fawn, and I made it into a water scene. So it just gives you that little texture, but it's not overpowering. And that's one of my favorite techniques, is the whole kissing and smooshing, that you can control how much ink, how much color you want, and be able to do a nice background. So it does make a difference. So I did use different colors, but I just want to show you that very easy. So with this one, I have the pattern raised. On this one, I have it on the opposite, so the deboss side. And here is using a different embossing folder with the raised side, so on the emboss side. So it's different colors, but I just use a nice sentiment and jazzed it up with some jewels, and there is one card done. So this is my tip, my technique number 1, which is the smooshing kissing technique. So next up, I have another one. So my sample will be a little bit different because I really love this Art Deco like Sherry. So I did use it a couple times, but today I picked up from the store a new one, and it's called the Pinwheel. So let me just move this out of the way because I need my board. So I will be going back and forth a little bit. Hopefully I don't traumatize anyone with the whole shaking. So with this one, let me see if I can show you. They're little pinwheels. My second favorite technique, this one I'll show you 2 different ways, is taking your ink pad, and I like using the small ones, and inking it directly. My tip for this one, if you are inking directly, is start with your lightest color. So that way you're not contaminating your light colored ink pads, which I did because you can see my yellow one has some pink on top. So always start with the lightest one so that way you don't contaminate it. But what I did with this one, and it's really hard to see because the cover is black, is try to ink in random spots. So I will put this up. So I'm just doing random spots, and yeah, I forgot the yellow, but maybe I can hide yellow side. Not so worried about my yellow because I already did contaminate it, but if you are doing this technique, start with your lightest colors first. But what I'm doing is just sporadically inking my cover. So I'm doing the raised side first. I'm just doing a light purple. It's hard to see, so you'll see me lifting it up just so I can see the ink shine underneath my light. And because I'm going fast, I might miss some spots when I do emboss it, but I will show you. So I'm just doing random, and you'll get this like rainbow look. Might miss some spots. Trying to make sure I covered. So when you're doing this technique, you'll be able to see there is some ink shine. The lighter the color, it is much harder to see, but the outcome is very pretty. So let's do, just add a little bit of blue because I think I added too much pink. And I will take another piece of paper. So I'm using a lot of white paper because it's the easiest to see the colors. And I'm just putting it in and folding it down, and once again I am going to put that into my machine. Then I will show you inking the opposite side of your folder because it does give you a different look. So once again, I'm rolling it back and forth 3 times. And because I am using Nina paper, I found that I didn't really have to mist my paper. It wasn't cracking, so I was okay with it. But if you find that your paper is starting to crack, just slightly use a spray bottle and mist it a little bit. But here, so this is when I covered the cover, so all the prints is raised, so that way you can tell my emboss that it's pressed down. So that's the emboss side, and this is the deboss side. That's a tongue twister. So that is one side, and I just love that rainbow look. So let me show you what it looks like on the back side, and then I'll show you my final product. So I'm just using the same colors, and this time I'm inking the back side in random spots. This is a pretty embossing folder. I just picked it up at the store today because I'm addicted to embossing folders. And let me do, you can tell which ones are my favorite colors because I keep going back to them. So I find when you're doing the opposite side, so the deboss side, it's easier to see the ink because it's clear, whereas the top flap has the image from the cover and it makes it really dark. So here I am just smushing some ink, color, might have missed some spots because I don't see it shining, but you will get the idea when you see it. So here, and another piece of paper. So this time I have to put on the bottom, close it, and let's emboss it again. And I will show you the 2 different looks. Oops, I'm so sorry for the shaking. So 3 times. You can get away with 2 for the 3D, but when you do that extra, the 3rd roll, you get that really deep impression, and you'll never cheat it and do 2 again. So I'll I'm hoping I covered this properly. Yeah, so you could tell I missed some inking, but just to show you the different looks. So this one, because I did on the cover, all the pinwheels have that color, whereas because on this one here, I did it on the opposite side, all the color is in the holes. And because this is a very detailed embossing folder, you have all those little notches in the pinwheel that have color, but I love the look of that. So let me show you what it looks like. Give me 2 seconds. Just moving that out of the way. So here, using the Art Deco again, you could tell it was my favorite. I have a couple samples just to show you. So here is the deboss side using the rainbow technique. Hello for everyone joining. So this and this technique are similar. So it's the deboss side. So everything is pushed down into your paper. I just put two stickers, put some embellishments, and there is 1 card finish. Well, 1 card front finish. For the opposite side, so the embossed side where your image is embossed, here is the Art Deco where all the fans, let's say, or the shells are raised. So 2 different looks. And then I just added a sentiment and some butterflies, and there is 2. So another way of showing you the deboss side, this is a different kind of embossing folder. I did the same thing. So with these ones I did random stamping. This one I just took 1 color and swished it horizontal. Then I did a second color and then back to the purple, and then just have that little rainbow effect. So same technique. So I just wanted to show you. So that was technique number 2. Next up we have, let's see. I have quite a few. So one of them is that, let's say you don't have a 3D embossing folder, but you have a 2D embossing folder. The technique is done the same way. These ones are the new Spellbinders one. They are a little bit bigger, which I really like because I'm a traveler's notebook girl, so I can fit a full panel here and do an embossed page. But I figured that you can do the same rainbow. So I'm going to just alternate 3 colors. And as you can tell, one's raised and one's not, and they have 2 different looks. So let's just do 1. So I'm just swiping it through. That's 2. So that's 3. And it's okay if you go over it just a tad so you have that nice flow. And I think I did cut a paper full length, so I'll just go right to the end and grab that paper. So with a 2D, my setup in my machine's a little bit different because it is much thinner. I need 2 cutting plates for it, or it won't go through. So now, where is my other one? So I just have that, put it in, and roll it through. Whoops. Oh, that's not going through. Hold on. Maybe I need to flip it up one more to the first panel. It's one of those where you have to play and find out what the best sandwich for you is, because I tried. Oh, doesn't seem to want to roll through today. Hold on. It's because I'm on live that it doesn't want to run through. Oh, here. 1 cutting plate, but I need 2 of the flaps down. Whoops. So this one I'm just going to go twice over. And so this one is a little bit different. So you do, because it's more shallow, you do see the streak marks, but I really like the look of that too. I missed a spot here. So this is using one side. So just for another look, I have a sample here. So here is using the deboss side of a different kind. I find that because the deboss side, it's more flat, and because it's not a 3D embossing folder, you do see the little little markings from your ink pad. But I really liked it when I did the emboss side. Like, it looks like the streaks are natural, it's part of it. So that is another technique using a big one. And so next up, let me just wipe this down. Give it a good wash after. My next one I want to show is using a brayer. So here I need, let's get the next embossing folder. I did have everything out. Let's see. Okay, so this one here I am using lumber, and it's the one that looks like a tree. So this one has two different looks when you emboss with it. So I will show you both, and then I'll let you know which one I like better. So here I am. Whoops. I just found some more of like the lumber look. My sample, I used the peeled paint, but this one I think I'll do two different kinds of brown. So I'm just going to swish it on my art mat on the glass, and I'm just doing one underneath another. So really we're going to use a brayer to mix the two together. The longer folders, yes it is. And the nice thing is Spellbinders started coming out, so I think they have released 4 designs, and if you're in Maker Mania, there was a full size one in there as well. And then they're coming out some more. But so this is my brayer. I'm just going back and forth just to get all the ink onto it. I might have to do it, and let's do this bottom one. So I'm just putting the ink down. And I find when you use a brayer, your ink is more smooth. So you saw the technique earlier where you get those streak marks. With the brayer, you have more of that smooth transition. And I'm sorry if you can't see the color. I shouldn't have used brown because it's too dark. I should have used a lighter color. So I'm just placing ink down onto my mat and using my brayer to mix the two colors together and rolling it on top of my embossing folder. So I'm using the raised side. So it has a different look, and let's put the paper in and go through the machine. So here, oops, you could tell my mats are all time for a new one. Okay, so this is a 3D emboss folder. My arm's gonna have a nice workout by this evening. I'm shaking the whole entire camera. So here you have that nice look, and the more ink that you put, the more you can see it. So here was me using brown, and I did on the raised side, so all that tree detail, that trunk detail is raised. So here is one, if I can find my sample. So here is a green one. So you can tell I added a lot more ink, and you see all those detailed lines. But when you do it on the reverse side, it was okay. It gives you a different look. But I think this would look great for a birch tree because it has more white than color. So this one you can tell I had lots more color. I'm going to, let's change up my tree just so you can see it. But let's do a blue one. Let me wipe this table down so I don't contaminate my ink. And let's do a blue tree. Yes, the effect of the brayer, it's very different They give you a different look. I'm using faded jeans. Hopefully, oh, this is inky. This will be perfect. So now I'm going to bray the other side. So I did the bottom. Now I'm doing it where the background is raised and all that detail will be pushed in. And I like this look when it came to, let's say, a birch tree. And I'll show you why. So just rubbing all that ink into here. I don't go directly, I don't put the ink directly onto here because I find that I get clumps of color. With the brayer, it has that nice smooth transition, but it's fun to play around with. So I'm not sure if that's enough ink, but let's do one more swoosh. And another piece of paper. And let's run that through. So going the opposite way. So 1, 2, and 3. So here, see how it looks more like a birch tree because there's more white with just that tint of color, whereas our other one has more color. So it's like you can make two different kinds of backgrounds where one's a tree trunk, like a tree trunk, or you can do this as a Christmas with a birch tree. And another look in green. That blue actually looks really pretty, but here is those two. So just changing up your colors and the side that you're doing the embossing folders creates a different look. So let me show you my final product of that, but now I gotta wipe this sprayer down. Okay, so here, so I did one sample using the deboss side, and I just added some flowers, and I will show you this technique. So this is my 4th technique where we are going to use the embossing folder for little elements. So let's start with that. I'm not sure if you saw earlier. So with embossing folder, you're not limited to big pieces of paper. You can emboss flowers or icons, shapes. So here I did was die cut some of Spellbinder's flowers that we can stack. So different ones. I also die cut some shapes that we can emboss in a different one, and I'll show you some final cards with that. And I put aside a sentiment that we can also emboss. So here, let's use so I'm using this one here. It's called Doily. And with Doily, I am going to use it on the flowers. Because with the flowers, I like that spontaneous pattern, so they're not all the same. So I'm just placing it randomly in here. Maybe I'll stick my circle in there. Circles as well. And close that and run it through. So one thing that if you are embossing shapes or sentiments or even your die cut pieces is to make sure you die cut them first before you emboss them, because if you emboss first and you cut it, everything's going to be flat by the time you take it out of your die cut machine. So make sure you cut them first and then you emboss them. So here are, let me see, do I have a white piece of paper? See here, I just gave my shapes and my flowers some texture to it so it's not flat. And what I love about that is that it changes your look on things. So here is that card I'm not sure if you see, but I use an embossing folder and I ran through all the paper. It gives it texture. So I also did, there is an embossing folder that does leaf marks. So that I did that with the leaves. And then I just picked a random embossing folder and put my flowers in there, and then I stacked it. The circles is the same thing. So here is one where I used an embossing folder and I just did random circles to make my own background, and I took my thickers and put a sentiment, and that card is ready to go. Just makes it so, especially if you don't want to use foam tape, it's a great way to get more texture, more height into your cards, and you don't have to put so much. Like this is only 3 colors of circles, random, and thickers, and that's it. You don't need anything else. So it gives it a different element. So here, let me use, since I already have it out, the same embossing folder and do hello. So I'm just putting, it's not hello, sorry, XOXO. I'm doing the same thing, and this works really well if it's a colored cardstock as well, because then you really see those raised marks. So here is, I know it's really hard to see. Where's my black paper? It's really hard to see, but I also embossed like a little pattern on XOXO. Let me see if I can bring that closer and get my camera to focus. But it just gives your words a little bit of more texture as well. So with XOXO, I used it in this unicorn card, and I just, after I embossed it, I just took my blending brush and added color. So there is one. So just adding sentiments, and I believe my other one, where's the other one? Not sure where it went. And the other one with the happy birthday was also the same thing. I kind of misplaced it. I'll probably find it at the end. So that is another favorite of mine. I have 3 more techniques. So one of them is called partial embossing folder. It's a tricky one, but it's quite fun. So here, so let's take this big one. I know I need my 2 flaps. So with a partial means you are not embossing your full panel. So this one here is an A2 size card. I'm just going to slightly put it down to the bottom, but not all the way, and I'm closing it. If it does move around, you're scared it's going to shift and not be straight, you can always put a washi tape inside. And how I put this in my platform is I have it flat, and I know I only need 1 cutting board. And what I'm going to do is just put that cutting board where the end of the embossing folder is. You don't want to go over. So this part is not going to be embossed, only the top part, and you run it the same way. So I love using partial because that way you don't have to cut your paper in half, which you can, and use the second piece for somewhere else. But this way, let's see. So here, that bottom is empty and that top part is embossed. So that's called partial embossing folder. And here is a look. So where that seam was where we didn't emboss, I just stuck a cardstock and I left the bottom blank. So that way you can still use 1 sheet and not have to put a separate sheet at the bottom because you want it covered. And it works for colored cardstock as well. So this is our partial embossing folder. Next up, we have one of my favorites is using a die cut to cut out your image first. So the one I'm doing tonight, if I can find it, I'm going to use this little stitch pond to cut out my middle. So let's do that first and I'll show you. And this, I'm just picking a random shape. It can be any shape that you're doing. It could be a circle, an oval. So I am die cutting the middle out. And I'll run it through my machine. So remember, you always want to die cut first before you emboss, so that way your raised parts of your embossing folder doesn't collapse. So it comes with these two pieces. My original sample, what I did was I embossed the middle and the end, but I think this one I'll leave unembossed. And I'll show you why after. It does give you a cool look, but let's just do the outside. And with this one, I'm using cobblestone. If you have an idea what I'm doing like a little scenery here. So I'm just putting that piece of paper into my embossing folder and going through the machine. Keep flipping this back and forth. Just doing it off screen so that way go a little bit. And one more time. So with this technique now, that middle is cut out, but I just made a little background here. So I know it's really hard to see, but here is my sample. So I die cut the pond. I emboss the cobblestone so it looks like there's like rocks around the pond, and I used my gray blending tool and I went lightly on the raised, and there, this card is not finished, but I thought I had extra ducks from our PJ party tomorrow, and I made a little pond or a swimming pool with the cobblestones. So just a different idea on using a cutout shape and embossing it. So I have one more technique. It's a fun one, but it's called the white pigment technique. So here, the best part is using colored. So I have my black one, and I am going to use the cobblestone because I felt that showed it the best. And where did I put it? So I'm going to emboss my background. Oops. So 2 and one more. So the white pigment gives it a different look. And you can do this with any ink, but there's something about white on things. So for this particular one, I want to do it on the emboss side, so the raised side. So where did I put it? Oh, here it is. So I'm just using a white pigment ink. And move stuff out of the way. And I'm just brushing it on top of it. Not with a brush, but I'm going directly right on top of it for that look. I tried a 2D embossing folder and I found that it went into the little creases, like the deboss parts of the embossing folder, but this one worked out nice. So it's just putting color. Yes, you'll get more white on some, none on some, but I really like that look. Just let it dry because it is a pigment ink, but it gave it like a snowy look or more detail to it, and it works really well on different colors. So here's one that's dried, so you could tell that it's not as intense. And here's a different embossing folder that I used. Just adding that little white, it made it look more rustic or vintagey. And there is a card. So I hope you enjoyed those little different techniques. So we have the white pigment, we have the one where you die cut and then you emboss, we have the partial emboss, we have our little images and icons and sentiments that are embossed. Oops, I'm running out of space. We did the Brayer, which was really fun. I think I need to use this card now. That looks like a birch tree there. We have those. What else do I have here? We also have, oops, just take it all out for you. Then we use the swipe across with the mini ink cubes. We have these ones here, which we did multi-stamping with ink cubes. And then here's another rainbow. And of course, my smooshing one. So different techniques. There's one that I didn't show tonight because it takes a really long time to dry. But it was using, so if you have done alcohol ink, you use a special synthetic paper called Yupo. So I wanted to play around and see what would happen if I embossed a Yupo paper and sprayed it with Distress ink. So that is what I did. I took a Yupo paper, which is an alcohol, well, used for alcohol inks. I just took a white sheet. I put it in an embossing folder. So this one I used the leaf one. And then I used Distress oxides and ink sprays. I just used a bunch of these sprays, different colors, and then I had to really let it dry because because of the way the paper's situated, it stays on the surface, so I needed like a couple of days to dry. But just a different look. I really like how the look of that. I thought if I did orange and yellows and browns, you have this like fall color, but that was another way of playing. And I think that is it. I hope you learned some new tips and tricks. Yeah, lots of tricks, and hopefully you'll play. It's a lot of fun, a lot of things, but if you have a brayer lying around, it's great. Mini ink pads I found was the quickest to do some of the smooshing techniques, but lots of fun. And for sure, if you have acetate or old packaging, you can also save it. I just put a washi tape so I don't lose it. But there you go, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. Next week is the first Tuesday of March 1st, and we have a new lineup. So more to come, more info, and I will go through the comments and see if I missed anything. But thank you so much for joining me tonight. Have a wonderful night and happy February. We're almost down to the last couple of days. And we will see you soon. Bye for now.